All right. Let's go ahead and get started. All right. First things first. Thanks for being here. Where are you from? What's your name and who you're from? We can see what your name is, but if you want to pop in the chat where you're from, please don't give us your specific address. We don't need that. Just a general state is a good idea. I'd love to see where everybody's coming from. Maddie, you don't have to do this. You're in our house right now, so you do not have to do this. But for anybody else, Lisa's over in Lisa, you're in New York or New Jersey? I'm so New York. You're in New York. I know you're in New York. Yeah, you're
The
in
Gilgo Beach Killer. That's where I live.
Yeah.
He lives about 5 minutes from me. Sorry.
You're fine. Shelby, West Michigan. Okay. Very, very cool. All right. So let's go ahead. Oh, Cheryl, go ahead. You raise a hand. No, never mind. Cheryl was trying to find the chat button. All right, let's get going here. All right, so hi, everybody. I'm Alex. Most of you probably know me. If you're here, you probably know who I am. But yeah, I just want to say thank you for being here. Here's a little bit about me. You know, I'm a husband to Maddie, dad to Milo. They're up there. I don't know if you can see everybody's tiles. Beth, feel free. Yeah, you're raising your hand. You got something to say? Let me know. Accident.
Accident. I don't know how to use this this platform. I
No
don't know where
worries.
the chat box is. Sorry.
I don't know where the chat box is either because I'm on a PC, not mobile, so I'm not actually sure
Go
either.
away. I didn't mean to do that.
Yeah, sorry about that. Anyway, I'm also a dad to my dogs, Leo and Rosie. I had a fantastic nap with them earlier today. I was really, really happy. Honestly, highlighted my day. I'm a big time nerd. I'm a chess player. I'm really excited for the next expansion of World of Warcraft or next patch of World of Warcraft. So, I mean, seriously, nerd, true and true. I am a not so good, but I'm a very positive and upbeat golfer on my good days. On my bad days, it's hit or miss, but Maddie keeps me positive. I'm an online fitness and nutrition coach, as all or most of you know. And my goal here is to like make things simpler. Like there's so much noise with social media, around fitness and nutrition, and just like it's exhausting. So my goal is to cut through that noise and make all of this way easier for you. I also created the Change Project. I co-created Forward Forever. I do a bunch of different things. All right. Here's what we're going to cover today. So what is metabolism? You know, it's this thing that so many people talk about, but what actually is it and why is it important? We're going to talk about, can you control your metabolism? Is it something that you can actually change? We're going to talk about some of the common myths and the magazine headlines that you see right here. Speed heal your metabolism, boost your metabolism. You know, this one, if you zoom in, it says 95% of women over 45 have broken fat burning systems. These magazines are absolutely ridiculous. I mean, they're just nonsensical. And then we're going to talk about weight loss plateaus and how to break through those. All right, so the first thing we need to know before we talk about metabolism is energy, calorie balance basics. And calories are just a measurement of the of energy, okay? Kind of like inches or miles are a measurement of distance. Calories are a measurement of energy, okay? So energy balance, calorie balance, same exact thing. These are the basics. Calories in, or what you take in, this is what you eat and what you drink. So this includes food, the nachos that you eat, or the steak that you eat, or the rice. Beverages, I'm drinking a Diet Crush right now. This doesn't have any calories, but if it was a calorie, I don't know, a calorific beverage. I don't think that's a word, but you know what I mean. If it had calories, like a Starbucks coffee or something like that, yeah, that counts toward my calorie intake, obviously. And then any bites. I mean, maybe your husband or your wife or your friend or your partner or your child didn't finish their meal, and so you just have like a little bite of that. That adds up too, and that adds up quick. Maybe that one little sip of your friend's mojito. And then we have calories out, the other side of the equation. So this is what your body burns, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more in depth in just a minute, but this includes all movement, anything. So what you burn at rest, your body requires a ton of energy just to stay alive. All movement that you do, so whether that's workouts, walking, me tapping my foot, moving my hands around, all of this requires energy, and even digestion. We're taking in the calories, but then our body actually uses energy, those calories, to process and digest it. Okay, here are the calorie balance basics. If you want weight loss, you need to be in a calorie deficit. So calories in, needs to be, it's kind of confusing because like a scale in this sense, you know, it's like, okay, calories out is greater than this, but it's high. It's kind of weird on this scale. We probably should have double checked this one, but we did double check it, but we probably should have thought of this one over a little bit. Anyways, weight loss is a calorie deficit. If you're in a calorie deficit, you will be losing weight over time, and vice versa. If you want to gain weight, you are in a calorie surplus, or you need to be in a calorie surplus. And if you are gaining weight, you are in a calorie surplus. So that's kind of something that you absolutely need to know. If you are consuming less calories than you burn every day, you will lose weight, guaranteed. And if you are not losing weight, then you're not in a calorie deficit. I know this is super basic, but it's really important that you understand that. Okay, go ahead and throw a thumbs up or a hands up or a me in the chat if you've ever Googled something like how to boost your metabolism. Yeah, Lindsay gave me a thumbs up. Yeah, we got some raised hands. Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of thumbs up. Haley just threw like 5 thumbs up. Lenore, hi guys, how are you doing? Yeah, it's common, right? I mean, it's like, especially when you see, you go through the grocery store, you're in the checkout aisle, you know, when right next to the Skittles, it's talking about, hey, your metabolism is broken and here's how to fix it. This one, you know, the lemon water, the slim tea and things like that. I mean, it's absolute nonsense, but I don't blame you for Googling these things because there's so much mixed messaging out here. So this is the meat and potatoes. What is your metabolism? It is your total daily energy expenditure. That's what it is. It is your energy expenditure. It's not this like weird kind of train engine inside of you that either revs up or revs down. It is your energy expenditure, okay? Your total daily energy expenditure, or TDEE for short, is made up of 4 things. Now, you don't really need to memorize this, but it's a good idea to have a general knowledge of it. First is your basal metabolic rate. This is the energy that you'd burn at rest. Imagine if you were if you were in a coma or something like that, right? You're not moving, you're just breathing and basically asleep, not moving at all. This would be your baseline energy expenditure. It is influenced by your body size. So if you're in a bigger body, then you're going to have a higher BMR, because whether it's body fat or muscle tissue, it is going to, and organ size too. Yeah, that's all going to require energy to upkeep. Next is the thermic effect of food. This is the energy used to digest food. So protein has a higher thermic effect, or it requires more energy to process and digest than fats and carbs. So if you increase your protein intake, that will marginally increase your energy expenditure, not beyond the calories that you know, would be contained in that protein, but yeah, it does have a higher thermic effect. Third is the exercise activity thermogenesis, sometimes called EAT. This is the intentional exercise. You know, when you go on an intentional walk, or you're lifting, or you're running, or sports, it's the intentional exercise. And then finally, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of this, is NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. This is all the other movement. This is me moving my hands around. It's not planned. I'm not planning on tapping my foot. I'm not planning on like fidgeting with my pen today. I'm not planning on pacing around. It's non-exercise activity, right? This one is very adaptable, especially subconsciously. You know, I'm sure you felt when you've been in intentional fat loss for a while, right? You might notice you're kind of leaning against stuff a little bit more. You're kind of not as excited or motivated to go for a walk or things like that. Well, this is part, or even pace around your house, and it is largely subconscious. That's NEAT having a massive effect. Okay, next we're going to talk about metabolic adaptation, because this is another one that people, they don't totally understand. Your body adjusts to your energy expenditure based on your calorie intake. So, you know, a lot of people talk about calorie maintenance. So let's say your calorie maintenance is 1,800, right? And then you move into a deficit, and let's say you go down to 1,400 calories or something like that, right? Your maintenance is coming down as that happens. So where you thought you'd be like, okay, well, 1,800 minus 1,400, I'm in a 400 calorie deficit, for example. Well, not exactly, because your body is bringing your energy expenditure down because you're bringing your total calorie intake down. Now, this isn't something that's going to be a perfect, like, oh, 1800, and now it's going to perfectly match your new target of 1400. That's not how it works, but there will be a little bit of a reduction there. This will show up with less spontaneous movement, less of that fidgeting, less of that moving around. This will be potentially reductions in your BMR and your thermic effect of food, because if you're not eating as much, yeah, you're going to expend less energy from processing and digesting that food. And this might show up as fatigue, tiredness, reduced motivation, less energy for training, all those different ways. And there was a really interesting overfeeding study by Levine in 1999 where he overfed people, I think it was 1,000 calories over their maintenance per day. I mean, it's just a ridiculous degree of calorie surplus, right? What was interesting is some participants gained as little as 0.8 pounds, and this was over the course of I think it was 30 days, but don't fact check me on that. But it was a pretty decent period of time. Maybe it was 3 weeks, something like that. Anyway, some participants gained as little as 0.8 pounds, and some participants gained as much as 9.3 pounds. They were in the exact same calorie surplus. Why wouldn't they have gained the exact same amount? Well, it's because everybody has different degrees of metabolic adaptation. So this can be something that works against you, and you just kind of need to plan for it. And this brings us to weight loss plateaus. When let's say you're in a calorie deficit and you are losing weight for a period of time, right? And all of a sudden you're like, wait, what's happening? I was like 148, 147, 146, 145. And now for the last 3, 4, 5 weeks, I'm 145, give or take a few pounds, right? And things were trending downward and they're not anymore. What's going on? What happened? Well, your body adapted, right? This is totally normal. As you lose weight, like I talked about in the last slide, your metabolism or your energy expenditure, it adjusts downward. Smaller bodies burn fewer calories. So if you've lost weight, yeah, you're gonna burn fewer calories. Your maintenance has decreased. And then the non-exercise activity thermogenesis usually drops subconsciously, like I just mentioned. Your habits also slip. This is really, I'm going to say if there's one thing that causes weight loss plateaus more than anything else, it's your habits slipping. And this is normal. It's easy to kind of get in this routine of, oh, I'm in a deficit. And then you kind of start getting a little bit fatigued, right? And so this can show up as, you're tracking. If you're somebody who tracks calories, maybe that's not as consistent or as accurate as it used to be. You're maybe eyeballing a few things. You're not pulling out that food scale. Yeah, you just had a handful of chips from the pantry. How much is that really going to add up? Those things, they really add up. Those weekends, the untracked weekends, the small bites and sips, those things really add up. And then the hunger and the fatigue and the motivation that, can come from being in a deficit for a while. Hunger, fatigue can go up, motivation can come down, and it just makes you less excited to keep your body moving and track your calories as diligently. So if I were to say one thing that really caused weight loss plateaus, it's the habit slipping. It's the things that got you into a calorie deficit. You're starting to lose your grip over them a little bit. So here's what to do about a plateau. There are two main things, right? The first one is the easiest. Just reassess your intake. Just track everything for a few days. No untracked bites. Everything is with a food scale, right? Everything. I mean, even the small bites. You have a bowl of chips or something like that, just pull out the food scale. Just measure it out. Use grams. Don't use weight, use weight measurements like grams, not volume measurements like a tablespoon or a cup or whatever. Then track your weight daily, okay? Because your weight, it's going to be ping-ponging around a bunch every day. We're going up 1 pound, 2 pounds. We're going down 1 or 2 pounds, but we need to zoom out and look at weekly averages. Do this for 2 to 3 weeks, and then you have really, really solid data. Maybe you're 185, then you're 186, but then you're 184. It's like, oh, wait, hold on. I think I am trending downward. Stay the course and stick with it. I really wouldn't make massive adjustments to your calorie targets until you've been super consistent for 2 to 3 weeks straight. And then just watch out for that small calorie creep. When you have less structure, whether it's you're going out to eat a lot or you're going over to a family member's house, or it's just small things like, maybe the cafeteria at work or things like that, and you're trying your best to estimate. Just try to be as conscious as possible. And if you're not sure of the calories that you're eating exactly, overestimate, especially if weight loss is a goal, overestimate. And then the second part, if you've already reassessed your intake, you've already tracked everything for 2 to 3 weeks, you're already looking at the weekly averages for weight, you got to adjust. It's time. If you're still at a weight maintenance or you're at a weight plateau, then I would reduce your calorie target by 200 to 300. You don't need to do anything super drastic. You could try increasing your movement, but there are diminishing returns to this. It's not going to be the most impactful thing. If you are already at like 8,000 steps, going up to 10,000, it's going to make a very marginal difference. Now, if you're at 2,000 steps and you go up to 6, 7, 8,000, that'll make a pretty big difference, and that might put you into a deficit on its own. So yeah, I will say, though, I just want to reiterate, most people probably don't need a calorie cut from their current targets. They probably just need to tighten up their tracking, their habits. That's not the case for everybody, but it's the case for a lot of people in my experience. So is your metabolism to blame? No, not really. It's unfortunately, no, it's not really, because that's like saying blaming your metabolism on your lack of weight loss is like blaming your spending habits as the reason that you can't build your bank account. Well, it's like, well, yeah, duh. I'm spending too much money. I got 30 different subscriptions, and every other week I'm buying a Lamborghini. It's like, well, yeah, it's hard to become a millionaire when I'm buying a Lamborghini every other week. So if I stopped buying, every Lamborghini, and I made my car, my garage down to one single car, I might be able to save a little bit of money. So that's kind of the same thing with metabolism, blaming your energy expenditure on it. Like, is it kind of true? Yeah, sure. But what's the intake look like? For a lot of us with jobs, is it easier to just go to our boss and say, hey, I need more money. I'm buying a Lamborghini every other week and I need more money like ASAP? Or is it easier to be like, okay, hey, the money that I'm bringing in is pretty static, but I can choose how much I'm spending. So that's kind of how I want you to see in the almost like an inverse sort of way. You're spending your calories. Your calorie intake is your calorie expenditures. You have very direct control over that. You have a little bit less control over the amount of calories that you are using for exercise and your organs and things like that. So yeah, that I pretty much covered everything on this slide. A lot of you have probably heard about reverse dieting. I'm going to talk about this really briefly, and please feel free to ask questions if they pop up. You can throw questions in the chat at any time, by the way, and I'll just get to them at the end of this when we have the Q&A. So if they pop into your head, I don't want you to forget them. But reverse dieting, it's basically at the end of a fat loss phase. It's this idea of you incrementally increasing your calories. Some people put some really high, they really stretch what it actually does. Let's say your maintenance is very roughly 2,000 calories, right? And you're at 1,500 calories right now, you're in a deficit, and then you think, okay, I've lost 20 pounds, 30 pounds, however much, right? And I'm done. Does it make more sense to spend the next 8 to 12 or 20 weeks incrementally increasing your deficit? Well, here's the thing that would happen. You're just going to be in a deficit for the next 8 to 12 to 20 weeks. If you're done with weight loss, be done. There is no advantage to doing this small incremental increase that won't happen by just jumping right back to maintenance. There is no extra benefit. So if somebody's trying to sell you on reverse dieting or anything like that, just know that you are now smarter than them. Congratulations. People who promote reverse dieting a lot, they kind of piss me off, to be honest. Like, they're really, really, really not up to date with the research. And I don't blame them for that, because not everybody's a massive nerd that wants to read research all the time like me. But I don't know. I just think it's not that hard to be informed about your job. It's a little bit of a tangent. Anyway, feel free to ask questions about any of that. I'm more than happy to rant on all that. So a lot of people, I'm sure you've heard it. I'll definitely, thank you for dropping that question in there, Lindsay. I'll definitely get to it right after this. Like I said, everybody, please feel free to just drop questions in the chat as they pop up. So metabolism and age. How many of you have ever heard something like, oh, well, when you turn 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 or maybe not 70 or 80, because like I think at that point people don't maybe care as much about their weight, or like hopefully, I don't know, maybe they do. Anyway, you probably heard that, right? You've probably heard something like, okay, well, once you turn X age, the weight really starts to come on. For some people that was college age, for some people that was whatever age it was, right? Well, I got some really bad news. It's not age. It's not specific, but that should be good news too, because if it was just your age, okay, so it's out of our control, so we're screwed. Like, I turn 40 and it's just all downhill. Like, that'd be bad news. No, here's some really good news. Herman Poncer, he's like the godfather of metabolism or energy expenditure research. He did a massive study on 6,400 people, over 6,400 people, as young as 8 days old to 95 years old. So, I mean, really, really massive study. This was like a landmark study in energy expenditure research or metabolism research. What he found, metabolism or energy expenditure does not slow down significantly from the ages of 20 to 60. It's pretty standard. So what happens then? And then there's also a decline of about 7% per decade, or about 0.7% per year after age 60. It's very small. I mean, we're 7%. You know, if we're at 2,000 calories as our maintenance, 7% from going from 60 to 70, we are now 140 calories less. Like, it's not this massive thing where all of a sudden you're just going to be piling on body fat. So what is actually happening when you went from 20 to 30 or 30 to 40 or 40 to 50? What's actually happening? Lifestyle changes. I mean, what really happens? Like, when you go from high school to college, all of a sudden you have a cafeteria and it's like you're throwing down on the chocolate milk and grilled cheese because you've never had unlimited access to chocolate. Is it just me? Was that just me my first year of college? But like, you've never had access to food like that where it's just immediately accessible. Or after college, all of a sudden you're not walking nearly as much and you have a desk job where you're there for 40 hours a week or more, right? Or maybe it's the kids leave the house for the first time. You're empty nesters for the first time in your life, right? And now what happens? You start going out to eat more. You're like, hey, honey, you want to go to Applebee's and split the 2 for $20 or wherever you guys go? I don't know. You know, that's the kind of stuff that happens. You're not chasing around after a toddler. I mean, you know, Maddie's got our child up there. He's 1 year old. He's about to be 1 year old 4 days from now. And he's just bouncing all over the place. Started taking his first steps. It's super cute. And he has this like little push wagon thing and he's just like trucking behind that thing. It's awesome. So it's more to do with the lifestyle changes. You know, are you going through this different segment of life where energy expenditure has come down and calorie intake has come up? It's more to do with that, and not your metabolism specifically isn't something to blame. The $1 million question: can you actually boost your metabolism? I mean, if you guys are going to hate me. This is why you all came here. You're like, tell me the lemon water and honey recipe. Lenore is giving me a thumbs down. She knows it's a negative. Yeah. So let's reframe that though, because it's actually, it's almost not. Can you increase your energy expenditure? I mean, when you say it like that, all of a sudden it's like, okay, wait, hold on. All right, hold on. He's tricking me. Can I increase my energy expenditure? Of course you can. What if you got as animated as me every time you talked, right? I mean, like, can you imagine? You'd be burning 7,000 calories a day. Not literally. But what if you started pacing around a little bit more? You know, what if you started tracking your steps and really trying to make a conscious effort to increase them? What if you tried habit stacking, where you pair one behavior with another? You know, I've had clients that they really like certain TV shows or movies or podcasts. You know, in Shelby's case, it was a podcast. And so she would hop on a treadmill or go for a walk while she listened to her crime podcast or her survivor recap podcasts. And so it's things like that. It's, you know, for Lisa, it was she likes playing The Sims. And so she had to do her treadmill time before she did her Sims, right? And so it's like, it's trying to find creative ways for you, you know, that you can try to incorporate more movement. It's eating more protein is another way to do it. So protein has a higher thermic effect. It's about 30% of the calories that you eat. It's not a perfect way of saying it, but let's say you ate 100 calories of protein. 30% of those calories would be used for the processing and digestion of it. So it's very high. This is compared to about 5 to 10% for carbs and fats. So it's not to say that like, oh, if I eat more protein, I will expend more energy beyond that. No, of course not. But if more of your diet incorporated protein, you know, if you went from 60 grams of protein to 100 grams of protein, you're going to be more satiated and it's going to have a higher thermic effect than the carbs and fats would, right? It also helps maintain muscle mass, and we'll get into that in just a second. You got to lift weights. And while I'm talking about this one, do you currently lift? Go ahead and drop a yes in the chat for me if you do. Or Cheryl's busy. She's got her hands full. So yeah, Cheryl's giving me a thumbs up. Cheryl, I want to see what you're working on when we're done with this, okay? Beth says yes. Lindsay says sometimes. We got a bunch of thumbs ups. Laura, Lisa, yes. Yes, awesome. Pyle, yes. Yeah, Sandra, yes. We got a ton of yeses. Awesome. right, so that's really, really good because I've talked about this in the past before, and I don't want to get into the logistics of it right now, but there's this, when people lose weight, I'll talk about it very briefly because I'm actually really passionate about Melinda, Lenore, yes, nice guys. When people lose weight, like whatever it's with, whether it's just, they're tracking their calories or they do a program like Weight Watchers or, whatever it is, right? When they lose weight without lifting, they are losing a combination of both body fat and muscle. That's not good because what happens is the body really wants that muscle back, right? And so when you lose that weight, let's say it's 30 pounds and let's say it's 15 pounds of body fat and 15 pounds of muscle, you lost 30. That's awesome. But losing 15 pounds of muscle is very, very problematic for the body. And the body wants that back. So what it's going to do is it's going to do something called it's going to have hyperphagia, which is just increasing your hunger, right? It's going to increase your hunger so that you increase your calorie intake and gain weight until you gain that lean mass back. But you're not gaining it at the same rate that you lost it. If you lost weight without lifting and without trying to maintain that muscle, it's going to go away really fast. And when you try to gain weight, it's not going to happen nearly as fast. If you tried to gain weight and it's 50-50 muscle versus body fat, you're on anabolic steroids. Like, it's not happening like that. So what happens is it's something called a fat overshoot, where somebody ends up in worse body composition and potentially higher body weight than they started at. So really, really important to lift weights if you want to lose weight too, because we want to just preserve that muscle mass at all costs. Muscle also burns more calories at rest than fat. Now you have maybe seen some, I could have done a presentation on this because some magazines say, oh, you'll burn 100 calories per pound. I'm telling you right now, with the amount of muscle, I'm not jacked by any means. I'm kind of muscular, but I'm not like blowing your mind jacked, right? I would die in like 5 days if my muscle burnt 100 calories per pound. Basically, all of us would. It's a really good thing that it does not burn that much. And I don't know how these magazines get away with some of this stuff, but muscle burns roughly 6 to 10-ish calories per pound per day, whereas body fat burns about 2 calories per pound per day. So let's say you're 145 pounds, you lose 10 pounds of body fat, but gain 10 pounds of muscle simultaneously because you're eating and maintenance and lifting weights, right? That change, I mean, you're losing 20 calories per day from the body fat, and then you're gaining 60 to 100 from the new muscle. It's like, okay, we're talking a 40 to 80 calorie increase per day. Okay, you can have another half of an apple, maybe a full apple, maybe be 3/4 of a banana or something like that. It's not a massive increase, okay? So while more muscle does slightly increase your basal metabolic rate, it's not the super dramatic thing, but it's more of, for the reason that I talked about earlier about that fat overshoot that you really, really do not want to, you really don't want to lose muscle. Next, you can increase your metabolism by sleeping more. If you have better recovery, you're going to build muscle faster. You're going to have more energy to move. I mean, going from 5 hours to even 6 hours is a massive difference. It's a massive, massive difference. So if you can do that, awesome. You can lift weights, it gives you more energy to lift weights. And when we look at sleep deprivation studies, it's really interesting. People who are sleep deprived, they acutely and maybe chronically, I'm not positive on that one, but at least acutely, they start eating more, which kind of makes sense. If we're more tired, we have less of that self-control, and we're just going to maybe want to get energy from the calories, right? So maybe it's, there's probably a multi-step approach to that for the reason that we would eat more when we're sleeping less. But there's also maybe an indirect boost to non-exercise activity thermogenesis when you're moving around a bit more, you're tapping your hands. If I'm really tired, I'm not going to be this excited to talk about a presentation about metabolism. I'm going to be a little bit more low-key. But luckily, I got 9 hours of sleep last night and a nap today, so I'm feeling really good. It also increases your adherence. If you're really tired, you're probably not going to want to track everything. It's just, that's the way it goes. And then managing your stress. This one's more indirect. Less stress, means you probably have more bandwidth for different things, like lifting weights, like for planning meals, like for walking. Now, I know a lot of you I don't know about all of you, but I'm sure a lot of you are parents, or you are school teachers, and whatever it is, you gotta play. You have a job, you have kids, you have parents that you're taking care of. It's busy season. I mean, it feels like every social events in the summer are crazy, right? Everybody I've been talking to is like, summer is hell. Like, get me out of summer. It's great because I love the sun, but it's also really intense. So, the stress levels might be a little bit higher. So, I've been talking about this quite a bit on my social media lately, but on Instagram specifically lately, but, just try to like give yourself a break, maybe reduce your standards for yourself, because that should be seen as a good thing, to give yourself a little bit of a break sometimes. Stress, we have this like finite level of stress, right? And if we're overdoing that, not good things happen. And this isn't meant to scare you or anything. It's like that. It's just like you feel overwhelmed, maybe some panic attacks. Not great, but whatever. How do you guys manage stress? Let me know, because I'm looking for ways. Throw them in the chat. Do you guys read books? Do you watch a movie? Do you play with a dog? Lindsay goes walking. Thank you, Lindsay. I hang out with Milo, my son. Definitely hang out with my dogs. I have a hammock outside that I sit on, and that's really, really nice. Golfing sometimes does it for me. Chess really does it for me, because I'm just like locked in for a while. We got, walking dogs, family time, go for a walk, lifting and snuggles with my cat, reading, Candy Crush, okay, walking with my dog Otis, walking, reading, watching mindless TV, reading, cycling, awesome. Sims, Lisa says Sims, yes. Beth says comedy shows. Oh, I love that, Beth. Let me know what comedians you're watching right now. I want to know. Allison says lift, Sandra walking and journaling. Awesome, guys. All right, so here's what I would not do when it comes to your metabolism. First, this is so important, you guys. Don't fall. I know you guys are going to scroll on Instagram, right? Maybe not today, maybe not tonight after this, but like eventually you're going to scroll Instagram and you're going to see the dumbest shit ever. You're going to see somebody who's like, well, the reason you can't lose weight is because you're not eating enough. The reason that you can't save enough money is because you're spending too much. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. That makes no sense. That makes absolutely no sense. So please do not fall for that. Next, don't overfixate on silly gimmicks like lemon water or apple cider vinegar or boosting your metabolism hacks, right? Like, it's all nonsense. And probably, though, avoid chronically low-calorie diets just to chase faster results. Now, I will say, I'm kind of a proponent of aggressive fat loss for the right person in the right situation. I think it can be a good tool in the toolbox for the right person in the right situation. I might have something coming out in that in like the next 3 to 6 months if you're curious. But it needs to be done in a very targeted approach, very, very accurately. And it just crash dieting. I'm sure some of you maybe have experience with this, but like crash dieting is not a good spot, because when you do it, and it's just like, it's not super intentionally done, you're just trying to plummet your calories to lose weight as fast as possible. What kind of happens is sometimes an overshoot, and that's not good. All right, we're getting near to the end. So here are the key takeaways, because I want you to be able to take action on all of this. You showed up, you gave me your time. I really appreciate you. Lenore says I was really pinning hopes on that lemon water. That's so good. But I really want you to be, be able to take something away from this. I don't want this to be just information for information's sake. So first, I want you to be able to, when you scroll on social media or you hear your coworker or your family member talking about it, that like their metabolism broken, you could be like, no, it's not. It's just straight up not, because that doesn't even make any sense. Saying your energy expenditure is broken, you'd be the first person in the history of the world, right? Now, but it does adapt though. So if somebody's struggling, they're like, okay, well, I thought I'd be losing weight faster because I brought down my calories, then, that's a very real thing. You can't hack your metabolism. So again, any influencers say that, unfollow immediately. Be like, okay, this is not a credible source of information. You can influence it with daily decisions though. I went for a walk with my dogs and my wife and my son this morning. Like, that's increasing my daily expenditure, right? And so trying to track your steps, and what gets tracked gets managed. So that could be a really good idea. And then just make sure you're tracking your inputs and your outputs so that if you're making progress. So your calories, your steps can be a really good idea. And then obviously, if you have weight loss goals, yes, track your weight, because if you're not heading in the direction that you want to be, well, you should have the tools to be able to adjust that. You bring down your calorie intake, and maybe you try to increase your steps. if you're already 8 to 10,000 plus, you're in a good spot. You know, focus on moving more, lifting weights, eating protein, sleeping, and managing stress. All right. Thank you, everybody. What questions do you have? I saw there were some up top, so I'm going to answer these two, but please drop them in the chat. Also, Beth, you're saying Justin Willman. I love him. That dude is so funny. Yeah, he does like those. There was one in particular that he did where he pretended, or like he had a crowd of people, and then he went under a sheet, and everybody else pretended like he was invisible or something like that. And I remember that one, and that one was just hysterical. I think I'm thinking of the right guy, but everybody else pretended like, no, I remember it. The participant went under the sheet. And then everybody in the crowd, he was like, okay, I'm going to make you invisible. And then he lifted the sheet, and the guy obviously is not invisible, but everybody was paid actors and they all thought he was invisible. And so the guy was like, you know, the person who thought they were invisible is going around and kind of like tugging on people's ears and stuff like that. So funny. All right. Lindsay says, what is the best way to figure out maintenance calories so I can cut from there? Yeah. So Lindsay, the best way to do this, honestly, two ways. There's an easy way and a more accurate way. The easy way, just go on to like tdeecalculator.net. That's total daily energy expenditure. So tdeecalculator.net. If you do that, you plug in your height, your weight, your age, things like that, and it'll tell you a rough estimate. So if you have no idea, totally fine. You just plug those numbers in. It'll give you a very rough estimate. It's very important for me to say, though, that that's an estimate. Could be too high, could be too low, right? But that'll be a good starting point. Now, the second way to do this is kind of part two of step one, though, is just track what you're currently eating. So track your calories and look at weekly averages. And then once you do that, look at your weight too. If your weight is kind of maintaining, okay, that's your maintenance calories then. Let's say it's like roughly 2,000 calories per day, right? You do that for 2 to 3 weeks, you're golden. And you don't really need to know your maintenance and then cut from there. If you just start to, probably go with tdecalculator.net. That'll be a really easy, at least like a rough idea for a starting point, and then track over time. But let me know if you have follow-ups on that, please. Beth says, if you have maintained resistance training through your lifespan, does it still drop in your 60s and 70s? Your maintenance still? Yeah. So does your metabolism like reduce in your, does it reduce in your 60s and 70s? Probably. I can't say that absolutely for certain, because it's always going to be individual. And like when we look at research like that, like we're looking at population averages. So what was happening to those people in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, right? A lot of them probably were losing muscle mass. Probably a lot of them were not keeping up with a resistance training routine. So it's entirely possible that would mitigate those reductions, but I can't say that super confidently because as far as I know, we don't have the research to definitively say that. But what I would say is like, you're putting yourself in a much better place, not just from an energy expenditure metabolism standpoint, but also if you're stronger, you have a drastically sizable reduction in your fall risk. We don't want to fall. When you fall, when you're older, you break something, mortality kind of drops quite a bit. So yeah. Pyle says, if you're done with a fat loss phase and an overage, if you're done with a fat loss phase on average, I'm sorry, I was reading that wrong. On average, how much would you increase calories if you want to go into a maintenance phase? Yeah, it's a really good question. So I would first look at what was your rate of weight loss. Let's say, all right, I'm going to get a little mathematical here. So please let me know if you need me to like rewrite these or like re-say these. So you need to write them down. So let's say you're losing at 1 pound per week. Let's just be real easy with it. Let's say you're losing at 1 pound per week, right? That means you were in about a 3,500, 1 pound is about 3,500 calories, very roughly, okay? So let's say you're losing at 1 pound per week. That means you were in about a 500 calorie deficit per day. So super simple, increase your calories, your calorie target by about 500. you're good. That's roughly your maintenance. Now, again, since we talked about metabolic adaptation already, after you make that 500 calorie increase, your energy expenditure may increase largely through that non-energy activity thermogenesis, or like that NEAT, the tapping around. You're going to feel more energetic, so you might expend more energy. And so if you move your calories up 500, for example, and then all of a sudden you're like, holy crap, I'm still losing weight. Slower, but I'm still losing weight. Great. You have a degree of metabolic adaptation going on, and so you can increase by maybe 50, 100, whatever that is. If you were losing at a half pound per week, it'd be 250 calorie deficit. A quarter pound per week, it'd be 125 calorie deficit. So on and so forth. So you just kind of look at your rate and then throw in some math on that end. Sandra says lemon water destroyed my tooth enamel. That sucks. Yeah, that's no good. I feel like I'm not in the dental world, believe it or not. You guys might not have known that, but I'm not in the dental world. I know nothing about teeth. But what I do know is that, or no, not what I do know. What I have heard is that there may be some enamel stuff like in early trials, like enamel regeneration stuff. I'm not positive on that. Like I said, I'm not in the dental world at all, but I saw that and I was like, oh, cool. But that was months ago and didn't look into it. Beth says, what's the best way to determine protein goal? Super, super simple, Beth. So what you're going to do is first take your body weight. And next, you're just going to think, okay, do I have 30 or more pounds to lose? Just remember that for me. Okay. Do I have 30 or more pounds to lose? If yes, then I would use your goal body weight for this calculation. Okay. If no, then use your current body weight for this calculation. All right. Now, all you're going to do, take either that goal body weight or current body weight, multiply it by 0.7. Let's say 0.7. So let's say it was 100 pounds, because that's really easy math. Let's just say it's 100 pounds, multiply 0.7, we get 70 grams. Okay. Yeah, I was going to pull out like a calculator or my other monitor, but let's just be really easy with it. So yeah, 0.7 grams per pound is a really, really good spot. That's a little bit over the like the lowest amount. The RDA, or like the recommended daily allowance, which is the amount we need to not be deficient, is about 0.4 grams per pound. I believe, because I think it's 0.8 grams per kilogram. Anyway, so we're a little bit higher than that, but the reason that I want you to be a little bit higher than that is because I want you to be able to maintain or even grow muscle as you age, right? Just in general. So yeah, that's why I shoot for a little bit higher. We don't really see too much of a benefit in terms of protein intake above 0.7-ish grams per pound. There's marginal benefit. So if you really like protein, feel free to go higher. It's absolutely fine to go higher than that, but don't feel like, oh my gosh, I need to get to 1 gram per pound. The difference in terms of muscle growth between 0.7 and 1 gram, it's pretty marginal. And I would really save that for like people who are doing bodybuilding as a sport or profession. Pyle says, how important is nutrition with building muscle? So pretty important, but not like super, super definitively important. And, the first thing is we need to have the stimulus, and which is lifting weights. Like that is the number one priority. If we don't have that, you can throw everything else out the window. It doesn't matter. Like just increasing your protein intake and hoping for muscle, it's not happening. Like it's like me hoping that Jeff Bezos calls me and says, hey, I want to give you $1 million. Like that'd be awesome. But if I spend actual energy hoping for that and thinking about that, total waste of time. So, yeah, it's pretty important, and protein could potentially be a limiting factor for, if your protein intake isn't sufficient, if you're not hitting 0.7 grams ish or 0.6 grams ish or above, then yeah, you might be leaving some gains on the table, but it's not super, super important. And then also, if you are in the greater calorie deficit you are in, the slower muscle growth happens, right? So you still can gain muscle in a deficit, but the faster you go with that, the faster you go with weight loss, the slower muscle growth is going to happen. It's why sometimes I recommend, like, man, maybe maintenance isn't the worst place for a whole lot of people, because muscle growth is going to happen a lot faster than it would, in fat loss. And I always want to remind people that, like, if you loved the way you look and felt, you would not give a shit about what the scale said. You wouldn't care what the number on the scale said. You wouldn't. You'd be like, oh, no, I don't. Why would that matter at all? Because I love the way I look and feel. So the scale or the number is completely irrelevant. And that's kind of what can happen when we talk about changing your body composition. And we move the conversation away from just, I'm going to change my weight. And so that's why muscle growth can be really important. There's so many health benefits to muscle beyond just aesthetics, but that is like a part of the conversation too. Like if you want to change the way you look and the way you feel, of course, then muscle growth needs to be part of that conversation. And muscle growth is so much slower if you're constantly pursuing a deficit, if you're constantly pursuing fat loss at all costs. You will lose body fat very slowly at maintenance, very, very slowly. Your weight maintains, but you're gaining muscle at the same time. Well, it has to come from somewhere, the weight, So, you're going to be dropping body fat. Again, very slowly, but body composition changes definitely happen at maintenance. All right. What other questions do we got? And Cheryl, can we see what you've been working on? We are very curious. That is absolutely lovely, Cheryl. Do you do this professionally? That looks amazing. No, you don't do it professionally? Okay. That looks really good.
Thank you. Just for fun. My parents are moving into a new home, so trying to get it done for their door. Thanks.
Oh, that's so wonderful. Well, congrats to your new to your parents.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Anybody have any questions? I'm going to leave it for like 30 to 45, 60 seconds. If anybody has questions, please drop them in the chat now. This is your time. If you're like, oh my God, what is creatine? Should I take creatine? Should I take fish oil supplements? How do I grow muscle? What's the best exercise for my glutes? Tell me more about lemon water. Anything goes. Otherwise, we're going to shut it down in like 30 seconds. You guys are very... Lindsay, should we take creatine? Yeah, you should. I do have a really lengthy podcast on creatine. I will answer any questions you have right now, of course. But I would recommend it. It's very safe and it is very effective. When life gives you lemons. All right, everybody. Let's. Lindsay, does it have to be daily? Yeah, I would do 3 to 5 grams daily. Yeah, I would. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. All right. Take care, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me live. I really appreciate all of you. Have a wonderful, wonderful night. Thank you.